I presume most of you are familiar with the name Scott Hahn. In case anyone doesn't know him, Scott Hahn was a very well-educated and very anti-Catholic Presbyterian minister who, after a deep study of Scripture, converted to the Catholic faith back in 1986 and really shocked the Protestant world by his conversion. And ever since he converted, he has spent the last 35 years of his life speaking and writing books in defense of the Catholic faith. And he's really helped many, many people come closer to the Catholic faith, including yours truly. It was his audio tape of his conversion testimony that one of my teachers in high school gave me that really made me fall in love with the faith and was a big reason why I became a priest. So this guy is a real powerhouse when it comes to the faith and defending it and bringing people closer to it. Well, recently I was listening to a talk that Scott Hahn gave, and he said something in the talk that really stood out to me. He said that no matter how hard he tries, he can't get his own family members to come closer to Catholicism. And he said he's had many conversations with them. He's given them all the arguments, but with the exception of a few, the others are just not interested in anything he has to say. And of course, he can't read their hearts, but he said that from all outward appearances, in 35 years, almost none of them have moved an inch closer to the Catholic faith. Now, mind you, this is a guy who has inspired not hundreds, but thousands of people to convert to Catholicism. Several high-profile Protestant ministers have left Protestantism and become Catholic because of Scott Hahn. And yet, when he comes to his own family members, almost no success at all. Well, what Scott Hahn is living out is exactly what happened to Jesus in today's gospel, and exactly what Jesus prophesied would happen to his followers. Jesus is in his hometown, around the people who saw him grow up. He's in Nazareth. And he speaks beautifully about the Scriptures. And what do the people say afterwards? Who are you? Aren't you Joseph's son, the little kid we saw grow up? And Jesus says, no prophet is accepted in his hometown or his native place. It's something that his followers have gone through for 2,000 years. You can inspire people on the outside, but when it comes to your own family members, your own co-paisanos, for some reason you can't break through the wall of their heart. Now, on a happy note, I will add that Scott Hahn did have success with the one person he cared the most about, and that was his wife. His wife was really resistant to everything he was talking about. She was the daughter of a very prominent Presbyterian minister, and she said as a little girl, her only dream was to grow up and be the wife of a Protestant minister. So you can imagine how angry she was when her husband came to her and said he wanted to no longer be a Protestant minister and wanted to be Catholic. So he kept giving her articles to read and books to read and kept talking to her about theology. But the more he did that, the more he pushed her away, to the point where she was even considering divorce just over his conversion. So he went to his spiritual director, and you know what his spiritual director told him? A line that changed everything. The spiritual director said, Scott, you got to turn down the theology and turn up the romance. Meaning, stop talking about religion all the time. She knows what you think already. Take her out on a date. Be a better husband. Be a better father. So that's exactly what he's set to do. He stopped talking about Catholicism completely. He gave his wife a weekly date night. Started making her breakfast in bed. Started doing chores around the house. And guess who converted to Catholicism 4 years after he did? His wife, Kimberly Hahn, who is now in her own right an apologist, a defender of the Catholic faith, and has authored books about Catholicism because he turned down the theology and he turned up the romance. When you're passionate about your faith, as I'm sure anybody who comes to Mass on a Monday morning is, it's only natural that you want to share the faith with everybody you love and everybody in your life. But isn't it true that so often we have the experience that we're able to inspire co-workers and friends, but when it comes to people in our own family, not always, but very often, we feel like we're up against a wall. You feel like that voice in, Charlie Brown? You know, the speaker that just went wah, wah, wah. You know that you're making sense, but you feel like you're just not getting through. And if you're in that position, and I bet you we all are with somebody in our family, it's really important not to get discouraged and not to give up. You're going through exactly what Jesus went through, and you're living out exactly what Jesus said would happen. He said that no prophet is accepted in his hometown. If you're not being accepted in your family, that's exactly what Jesus predicted. It's not a reason to get upset. So don't get discouraged. And then the second thing we got to do, we got to reassess our strategy. We got to reassess our strategy. Sometimes we just talk too much. Our family members don't need to be preached at, and they don't need to be lectured. They already know what we think. They already know that we think they should think what we think. We don't need to remind them all the time why they should be pro-life or more Catholic or come to Mass more often. They know already. We got to turn down the theology, and we got to turn up, if you're a spouse, perhaps the romance. If it's not your spouse, you got to turn up the love. You got to turn down the theology, and sometimes you got to turn up the prayer and fasting. You know the old saying, you got to talk to Jesus about your family members before you talk to your family members about Jesus. And we got to turn down the theology, and we got to turn up the good example and the witness of joy. That's what convinces in the end. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying." People want to see it. They don't want to hear it. A lady in my first parish once said, "I'd rather see a homily than hear a homily any day." So if you're feeling frustrated at all right now because you're trying to bring your family closer to the Catholic Church and it's not working, don't get discouraged. You're going through what Jesus went through, and you're living out his prophecy. Just turn down the theology and turn up the love, the prayer and the fasting, and the good example and the witness of joy. And someday, in God's timing, not yours, but someday, you will see major conversions right in your own family.